The elusive French macaron. Patisseries all over the world struggle with getting this delectable sweet to come out just right. I myself, as a home chef, have struggled dozens of times with this little treat. So here's how I do it, and here's what to look for when you make it in your own kitchen. For your ingredients, you're going to need 3 egg whites, a cup of powdered sugar and a cup of almond meal, half a cup of white sugar, 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar, some food coloring, a pastry bag, and a stand mixer. So let's talk about your almond meal and powdered sugar. Now, this is an important step because you have to pass this through a fine mesh sieve to remove any chunks that are present. This will help you have a nice and smooth macaron cookie when you fold in the meringue, and it will help it bake quite evenly and give it a nice shape. It's time to make your meringue. So in a mixing bowl with 3 egg whites and your stand mixer, begin to form soft peaks. Add in your cream of tartar sauce and gradually pour in your white sugar. The white sugar is going to help the bubbles become more finer and more abundant, which will eventually form your stiff peaks. At this point, go ahead and add your desired food coloring. Right here I am using gel food coloring, so I had to use a knife to apply it to the meringue. The reason why I've done this to the meringue is because oftentimes when you fold the meringue with your almond and powdered sugar mixture, the food coloring doesn't always incorporate very well. So I have chosen over time just to add this into the meringue just to make sure that the color is evenly distributed. So now that we've got the meringue to stiff peaks, it's time to fold it into our dry ingredients. This is the macaronage stage, and it is the most difficult part of making meringues. There is no set point at when to stop because it's different depending on the humidity in the room, the temperature of the room, how much air is in the meringue. But essentially you fold it in very slowly just to make sure your dry ingredients are very well incorporated with the meringue, to a point that it's going to look similar to kind of molten lava, where it flows very nicely off of your spatula. So as you can see, I check it every couple stirs just to make sure the consistency is there or not there. If it's not there, I'm going to refold it. If it is there, I'm just going to stop. So as you can see, every stir, it changes its texture, its consistency. It becomes more loose and more flowy. You want to get it to a point that it flows off the spatula in a steady line. It's going to stream down back into the batter and incorporate itself within about 5 seconds. Now at this point, that's when you stop and you prepare your pastry bag for piping it onto your baking sheet. So I've never been really good at that fancy way of holding the pastry bag with my thumb and forefinger and getting the batter in. So I use a cup that helps me get the batter in really well, and to a level that I still have some excess plastic from the bag that I can use it to seal up and twist. This helps get good pressure when you are piping it onto your baking sheets. As you can see here, I have piped my macaroons to a size of 1 to 2 inches and left about 1 to 2 inches of space in between. It's important to pipe these onto parchment paper or silpat, as you can see here. This is because it's not going to release itself off of foil or wax paper, so make sure you're using parchment paper and or silicone mat. Here's another important step to making macarons. You need to slam the cookie sheet onto a countertop. Now this is going to make a lot of noise. It's going to disturb everyone in the room, everyone in your home, in the neighbor's home. It's going to make a lot of noise. This is a process that's very important, as this also can contribute to the success or failure of your cookies. Essentially what happens here is it pushes the almond meal and powdered sugar mixture to different parts of the cookie, and this helps create the nice feet that you see on the bottom of macarons. So if, say, you don't want to do this, or you don't want to make a lot of noise, alternatively you can take the cookie sheet and punch the bottom side of it with your fists, and you're going to do this until you start seeing the cookie spread out in that nice dome shape that macarons have. You're going to hurt your fists if you do that, but that is also an alternative if you don't want to slam it down on the counter. Another tip is you can put a towel on top of the countertop and then begin slamming your cookie sheet on there. That will help muffle some of the noise. But again, this is a very important step of making macarons. If you skip this step, you will not have the perfect, nicely shaped dome cookies that the macarons are known for. Now you're going to leave your macarons on the counter to dry for about an hour to 2 hours. This is dependent on the humidity in the room that you're in. You need the tops of the macarons to dry out completely. That will help create that nice dome shape that they're known for. I chose to leave them out for about an hour and a half, and then I tested them. And you test them by lightly touching them with your finger. If they are still too damp, the batter will stick to your fingertip. If they're ready to go, essentially the batter will not stick and your finger will be dry. Now go ahead and preheat your oven for about 300 degrees Fahrenheit, and once it's ready, you're going to stick these macarons in. With my oven set to 300 degrees Fahrenheit, I put my macarons on the middle shelf. It's important that you don't overcrowd the macarons because they are quite greedy in the oven. They want their own space. So bake these for about 12 to 15 minutes, and you'll see that they form these nice little feet shape on the bottom, as they call them. They call them feet. It will form that if everything has been done correctly up to this point. Now once they have baked, you take them out of the oven and let them cool completely on the countertop before you remove them from your parchment paper or silicone mat. Now if after they've cooled completely and you notice that they still kind of separate from each other, put them back in the oven for another 1 to 2 minutes, and that will help the rest of the batter cook inside that may still be raw. So here's how the cookies turned out after baking. As you can see, some of them did form quite nicely and others did not. So why does this happen? Why do they crack at the tops? It's a couple of things. In this instance, I can tell you that I perhaps didn't beat enough air as I slammed them on the countertop, and I may not have let them dry long enough. So it's just a combination of things sometimes when these don't cook, and it's a trial and error process and you learn as you go. So maybe I could have left these out for another 30 minutes and they would have all been perfectly formed macarons. Separate your macaron cookies from your parchment paper or silicone mat and group them together by similar sizes. This is going to help for when you fill them with your buttercream or jam or fruit, that you sandwich them together and they're going to look proportionate. You don't want different sized cookies placed together, otherwise you won't get that perfect nice macaron shape. So here I have some almond buttercream that I had left over from the last time I cooked macarons, and I put them together. You want to put these in the fridge for a couple hours, preferably overnight, and that will help soften the cookie if they were perhaps overbaked, and they'll be ready to serve. I'm really happy with the way these turned out. Go ahead and give it a shot. Let me know what you think. Message me on Instagram or comment below. I will try my best to reply. If you need some suggestions or even have suggestions for me, I'll be open to them. Have a good day in the kitchen, everyone.